later to study information systems in the Institute of the School of Computing and Informatics. I've been in leadership for the longest I can remember, from the time I was in class 5. I was in the students' leadership in various groups, which we will mention, and today I do mostly trainings and supporting businesses, hosting online services. I have a family and life is good. Yes, life is good. So today this is our day 2. As you said, we are going to talk about just 2 things, but usually very long, can take a whole day, but we've cut it short. You guys are from the University of Nairobi. You can do Karash and still be able to understand and figure out. At this level, most of your study should involve personal research in order to understand better. So whatever we're giving is just but some tip. If you want more information, you can always dig deeper and get more. And that is the beauty of study. That's why you're called students and not just pupils. Pupils are taught everything. Students study and research. So we're going to start with problem-solving strategies, or some other ways we can always solve our problems. And you see, life is full of problems. And that's the beauty. That's the good thing about life. Long time ago, when I was growing up and seeing problem after problem after problem after problem after problem after problem after another. Yeah, you still remember that party after party after party. Now, it was problem after problem. Then I was wondering, why? And why me? Why all the problems? It took me quite some time to ponder over it. Apparently, I started taking my time to think about things from very early ages. And so, I started imagining the other extreme. How about if there were no problems? And I started imagining if there were no problems, the problems like maybe lighting, we would not have electricity. If there was no problem of transport and movement, we would not be having vehicles. No problem of communication. So generally, problems push people to become more inventive and innovative, and they become much wiser. And so most times we need to face the challenges that we meet, the problems that we meet, as opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow, opportunities to get better. I like saying that troubles don't come to trouble, but to train. Troubles don't come to trouble us, but to train us. After every crisis, we are better. After this COVID thing, we are going to be a much better people, more experienced, much wiser. And so it's good to know that problems, we don't need to ask why me or why him or why us. Yeah, we are the people experiencing this. The moment we change our thinking about the problem, most times it is our thinking which is the problem. Our thinking about the problem. The problem itself isn't the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. If you face it with that attitude of a victim, then most times you don't get a solution, because your mind stops thinking. You stop being creative. But when you face it with it can be resolved, then most times you'll realize that solutions are just there about you. You always can see the solutions, and you will be able to fix them. So the first thing we must always do is to embrace problems. I told you yesterday that when I was in Chiromo, we started referring to those mathematical equations as mathematical problems, and we would be told find solutions if they exist. Now, in the problem world, the real problem world, there are always solutions, and we only need to go out with an attitude of looking for a solution, no matter what problem there is. But if we believe that we are defeated, we are already defeated. As W. Clement Stone said, whether we think we can or we can't, either way, we are right. And so the question is, what do you think about your problem? There are people who love running away from a problem. It's never a solution. I've always talked about this for years. Running away from a problem doesn't solve it. Over time, it will just catch up with you. And as somebody says, it will only increase the distance between you and the solution. We need, whenever there is a problem, and more so leaders marshal people towards solving a problem. It's good to know that the more the problems you can solve, the higher your value in the marketplace. People pay you because you are solving their problem. So if you're going to be in a position to grow and become more successful and earn even more money, now that we are also talking about money today, we have to be people who embrace problems and are willing to solve even bigger problems. Yesterday we were talking about the purpose for creation, and now we can relate. We were talking about cars, buses, and tractors. You can know between a tractor and a saloon car which one solves bigger problems, and then check the cost. Between a bus and a bicycle, which one solves a bigger problem, and now you can check the cost. So if you can solve bigger problems as a leader, then your value in the marketplace goes up, and you always want your value to go up. You do not want to be static, neither do you want your value to depreciate in the marketplace. All those are possibilities. There is a possibility of your value depreciating in the marketplace. The things you used to know, you don't know anymore. You see, during our time, people loved going to study Windows, introduction to Windows, Microsoft, whatever packages in town. And then they sit down having done the packages. But they just realized that they knew the packages the moment they were doing them. They come sit down 2-3 months, they are as good as they never attended. They only have remote idea. And so maybe their value fluctuates. What you want is to always improve in value, and that means you must be able to solve bigger and bigger problems. As we like saying, don't ask for less challenges, ask for more skill. Don't ask for less burden, ask for a stronger back. Don't ask for less problems, just ask for more knowledge, more skill, so that you are able to solve bigger problems. You're able to solve every problem that comes your way. Now, every problem has a solution. All we just need to do is seek, and we shall find. It is written, seek and you shall find. It's not written, seek and if it exists, you shall find. Or somehow, or sometimes you'll find. It is seeking as a prelude of finding, a precondition. So, solutions are always there in any problem that we could be in. In fact, part of the solution can always be changing our attitude, changing our thinking about that problem. Probably it's just a big opportunity, and with every problem, there is always an opportunity lacking therein. And this is one thing you need to do. Always there are people who will only talk about problem, and talk negative. They will drain your energy. What you want to do is stay away from them. Stay away from such people. They never get solutions, but instead they have problem for every solution you bring. They will always poke holes into it. Why can't we do this? But then he asks, what if this one happens? What if this one? They know all the possible problems that can happen. And so they always try to stay safe, staying away from trouble. It doesn't make anyone grow. We must strive to be people who embrace storm, who embrace challenges like the ego. Maybe some of you have learned the principles of an ego. When storm is coming, that is when they go up and fly higher. They don't go looking for hideouts. And so the first step, the moment you've changed your thinking and your attitude about a problem, is to define the problem and state it clearly. Most times, people solve problems they don't know. And so they find solutions for problems that don't exist. Sometimes the solution you think is to your problem is not the solution. Let's say you're failing in exams, you're failing a particular exam. You may think, for example, that maybe the lecturer is the problem. But if you think clearly and start understanding yourself, we started from self-awareness, then you might realize that perhaps you're just not well planned. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I was told that when I was in secondary school. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So you've always failed to plan. You don't give it ample time. It's a little more difficult unit. And so you need to concentrate. Maybe it is your study room or where you study, which is the problem, full of noise. Maybe it's your friends. They have a negative attitude. So it's good to always define a problem clearly. You know, when I started my first business after college, that was about 4.5 years later, about 4 years after college, I started my business. I retired after exactly after 4.5 years. I had given myself a goal to retire after no more than 5 years. Now I started a business and realized I wasn't making money. And I started thinking, where could the problem be? This is what we call troubleshooting in ICT and generally engineering world. I started troubleshooting, trying to find out where the problem is. I started thinking maybe the products are expensive. Maybe they're just not right for the market. But then later I realized that, guess who the problem was? Me. I had no skill. And so when I went for the skill, problem was solved. And to date, problem has always been solved. A problem defined is a problem half solved. Always remember that. So be clear what your real problem is. And that can only happen the moment you've changed your attitude about the problem and started looking for solution with a positive mindset. But if you're looking for solution with the defeatist mindset, you're already defeated. So that's why it's critical to change our thoughts, and then we start by defining our problem. Now, this changing thought thing, I may introduce some other things that some of you have heard of, but some of you may not have heard of. I remember when I was being taught by a professor, material of physics. He said during one of the lectures, he said, take it as a black box. It just works. Whether you understand what is inside and how it works, or you don't understand. So for this, if you want to understand more, you can always go dig deeper. But if you've ever heard of it, great, because you will affirm it. If you've never heard of this, I wish I learned it when I was at that age. I would be far much more successful today than I am. So I'm going to introduce this, and you will be able to remember it, that thoughts become things. Thoughts become things. That's a fundamental law in life. It's a fundamental law, a natural law. It doesn't deviate. It works with very much precision. That what we think, we become. When I graduated, I started working for a small firm, ICT firm. I hope you know, it's not very small, it's big actually. IAT, Institute of Advanced Technology. I used to see their posters in the hostel. They're pinning them in the notice board. And I loved computing world so much. So I got attracted to it. When we were just about to finish, I saw the same and I applied. Thankfully, they invited me for an interview in between this time when you finished exams and you're waiting for graduation. I attended the interview, and then later, that same day of graduation, we were having another week, the whole weekend of training and interview. It's training come interview, because out of it, some people would be dropped. And I learned that my thoughts about this organization had become true. I could see myself working there. Now, when I was there, these are things I learned later. Just connecting the dots behind. When I was there, one day browsing, I came across a quote by Gautama Buddha. He said that all thoughts in the mind have made us. Thought in the mind has made us. Our minds are creative. Whatever we think, we become. I still have that in one of my emails as a tagline down. Whatever we think, we become. So if we keep thinking problem, talking about problem, they keep coming. And that's why I've been telling people, you keep thinking and talking about COVID and trying to prevent it, because there is another law that says whatever you resist persists, or what you fear perseveres. So you keep resisting and pushing it hard, it will come to you. Just let that thought go. So with this in mind, I'd like us to revise what we also said yesterday, that our results, somebody needs to mute. Our results are given by...
Peter.
Yes?
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to recognize that the principal has joined us.
Okay, thank you.
And welcome, Professor Aduda. We started a while ago and we are doing well.
Continue. Good morning once more.
Good morning, Prof. Good to have you around. Great.
Continue.
Yeah, so I was just saying I wanted us to check again this formula that I gave yesterday. By the way, if you're going to use this formula somewhere, please always remember to say, this is by Otieno Paul-Peter. So, results, that is the person we are, or what we get, or our experience in the outer world, is determined by our thoughts and our activities. That is what we think. Now, if you relate that to what you can see there, thoughts become things, you should be able to see that if we think rightly, we're going to get the right results, we're going to get the right solutions for our problems. We think rightly, we're going to act rightly. Now, I love saying this. The moment we are not getting the results we want, then guess whom to blame? You blame yourself. I blame myself. Because I need to go back and troubleshoot. Was I thinking rightly? Or what how about my activities? Were my activities right? The other thing is, we already learned that our thoughts are generally built using our experiences. Our experiences, that includes our knowledge, what we know, and what we feel. So allow saying that what we get, that is the results, are determined by what we think and what we do. But what we think is determined by what we know and what we feel. So we need to always upskill, we need to always keep reading, keep studying. Then we will always get results much faster because our thoughts are improved and we are able to act right. We are able to do the right things. And so here is another thing we need to know. What you focus on expands. Yeah? Where attention goes, energy flows and results follow. So we need to always be conscious about what we focus on. If we focus on how big our problems are, then they become even much bigger. They expand and we start seeing ourselves as, you remember, if you've read the Bible, remember these Israelites, they want to cross Jordan to go to Canaan, and some other spies are sent to the other side to see how the other side is. And then they come back and they give a negative news, except 2 people. They give a negative news that when we looked at those people, they were so big, the Anakims. We were just like grasshoppers. Their problems were expanding. They focused on the negative side. They all perished. So we always need to check what we focus on. It's a law. What we focus on expands. You keep thinking about something, you keep thinking about something. If you keep thinking of solutions, solutions keep coming your way. I came up with this diagram sometimes back, a number of years back, just to explain what I mean. That based on those 2 or the foregoing statements that I've just made, you should be able to see that our thoughts getting into our minds, where they reside, give us the results, which is the reality that we have. So this is your universe in a nutshell. These thoughts can come from our surrounding, in which case the results, the reality that we see, maybe we are lacking in money, maybe we're lacking school fees, or maybe we are getting accident. You realize that some people are prone to accidents. They get it again and again and again, yeah? So the reality keeps them thinking and feeling about the same thing, which feeds back into their minds. Why? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Or thought in the mind hath made us. Or thoughts become things. And gaze what? We have a choice on what to focus on, because what we focus on expands. We can imagine things, and these give us energy. Imagination is free. Nobody will charge you for imagining anything, and so you choose whether you want to imagine the right things or the wrong things. Long time ago, when I lacked school fees and I was back at home, occasionally I would be in a farm where there were, that is a sugarcane farm, and I would sit there chewing sugarcane, and imaginations would come to me, and they were always beautiful imaginations. Imaginations about possibilities, managing to go to school, managing to go to come to the university, and I didn't take time to imagine the worst. Now, I did not have any idea how I would go to the university, because school fees for secondary itself was a problem. I took 1 whole year outside after class 8. But I didn't give up. It was still ringing in my mind. When I finally started secondary school, I started it towards the end of first term, and the very same day I got in, people were already going on with carts. In fact, that very moment, around 10 o'clock when I was getting in, people were sitting a biology cart. But this was now the school next door, the school just next to me, which I did not want to go to, as most of you would not prefer to go to the next door day school that has always been there with no much results. But the flame in my heart wasn't quenched. Later, even in that year, I was always in, out. Most times I was out for even a whole term. At one point, my deputy head teacher asked me, he did not even know that I was still a student in that school. So he asked, "Wait, have you been coming to school?" I said, "Yes, I come sometimes." "But do you think you will manage?" "Yeah, I will manage." "How will you manage? Will you even go to Form 2? I said, "Yeah, if I pass." But I realized it was easy to pass. I just needed to read. So I would get notes and read. But then later in Form 3, I was out for another whole year, only to resume the following year in Form 4. That is also around February there, towards March. And I did not have any previous school notes, but my flame of going where I was supposed to go wasn't quenched. And I passed. And I passed well, at least that time. I got a B+. So what I've learned is it's easy and free to imagine, even if you are in hell. The people who survived the concentration camps imagined themselves out of it, imagined a better world outside. The people who ended up reaching Canaan imagined Canaan and the flowing milk and honey. We must always, in the midst of crisis, be able to imagine the solutions we want, and they must be clear. And that's why I love starting with the results. I don't start with T plus A equals R. I start with R equals T plus A, so that we always focus on the results that we want. If we don't know the results we are looking for, if we haven't defined our problem and we have no idea about the kind of solutions we are looking for, then we are not likely to get them. So this is in a nutshell. Okay, this thing has moved. It was supposed to be facing up. But this is, in a nutshell, what can we do about the problem? We ask ourselves. We've already known the problem. We've defined it. We've changed our attitude. We should ask, what can I do? Yeah, I as an individual. Most times we run to other people first. And we even run to people with not much experience about the problem and don't even have knowledge. They neither have experience nor knowledge. So first of all, from my experience, from my studies, from my observation, ask, what can I do? I need to ask myself, what can I do? Is there something I can do? And most times you'll realize that solutions reside with you, with a new you who has positive mindset. And then go back to study, research. This is what people do everywhere, even in the universities. Right now, people are going back to study the virus, to study virology, to go back to the first principles and get to know what some other people started learning in Form 1 about biology and all these things. What can I read? Maybe you've forgotten something. Maybe you need to read more, because when you haven't understood something, then it means there is some knowledge gap. And remember, our thoughts and activities will always be dependent upon what we already know. So we must study, we must dedicate ourselves to read and look for solutions ourselves. And sometimes the world is just waiting for us to give it. That's why I keep wondering why I'm not hearing Kenyans coming up with solutions to COVID. We don't need to import problems and import solutions at the same time. At least we can import problems, there is no problem with that. But let's also export solutions to those problems, because if we can solve bigger problems, therein lies our success and our money and recognition and everything. So The third thing we need to do is ask, whom can I ask that is consulting with? Maybe your professor, maybe some other consultant, maybe some other people who've gone through the same experience, some other people who are more mature in the field, and something like that. Yeah, this works well in many industries, even in research, even in business, even in most times when I deal with people, even in business, they ask for problems I've already solved before. At one point when I was going through different challenges, I asked God, give me more problems and bigger problems so that anybody who will come to me, they will come to me with a problem that I ever experienced. And that is a prayer I was taught by one of my mentors. That you always need, if you are not experiencing problems, ask God for more problems so that you are able to upskill much faster and become a champion in the field. So as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Problems are good. We always need to seek them and solve them. We solve them by changing our thoughts about them. We solve them by changing our attitude. We solve them by believing that there exists a solution, always just waiting, and maybe the world is dependent upon me. If this is a unique problem, perhaps the world is dependent upon me to come up with a solution. And we go back with all the knowledge that we have. We start asking, what is it that I can do about this? And if you pick it up, you take responsibility, most times you will be able to get the solution. Remember what we've discussed here. It's going to translate to the next series, the next discussion that is about personal finance management, because these principles are natural principles. They are always true, visibly or invisibly, anywhere. They whatever is true in this plane is also true in the other plane. So these principles will apply, this problem solving skill will apply everything that we are going to discuss in personal finance management. We are transiting to the next discussion. So I would love to hear if somebody has anything that any comment that they would like to make, or any questions about the same.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. I'm getting you.
I have a comment, maybe in terms of thoughts.
Yeah.
I understand that success Wi-Fi now, and most of the information that they feed in their minds with the free internet and the advancement in technology, it has to do with nothing actually in terms of personal development. So I don't know how best can you mention this, because I know it has to do with something, it has to relate with something to do with self-discipline and self-control. What do you feed in the brain? Maybe that results to thoughts, which results to action, and generally success. I wanted you just to mention your observation or your comments on what we feed in the brains in terms of life success.
Thank you. One thing all of us need to know is that whatever gets into our minds is usually a result of what we read. You see, whatever gets into our minds will be dependent upon what we read, what we see, some of us are big time consumers of bad news, or rather, I say bad news because most news, for it to make it to be news anyway, it's got to be bad news. Some of us have been telling the COVID together with Mutai Kagwe every minute. Umejua sasa wamefika wangapi? Yeah? Wamepatikana wapi? Let me tell you, what you seek is what you find. So we must check what is it that we see in our with our own eyes. What do we concentrate on? What do we give our attention? What do we watch? What do we read? You can read a newspaper. You don't have to read the things that distress you. That's the reason today we have more people who are distressed. A lot of you young people are on Facebook. And most times you scroll Facebook, you'll just hear people complaining, people talking about this, people talking about that, condemning. 3 things we usually say, 3 C's to avoid: criticism, complaining, and condemnation. Don't criticize, don't complain, don't condemn. That alone will keep you away from negativity. So choose, in personal development, which is what we're doing now, you must choose what, you see the way you feed your body every day, and you have even timetable for food maybe. You can always have timetable about what you read. What is it that you read? Yeah, you're reading funny things. You see, in computing we say garbage in, garbage out. What you feed in your mind is what's going to reproduce itself, and the mind has a tendency to multiply it. So you will see more of it. Check what you read, check what you watch, check what you think, check what you imagine all the times. Put yourself a timetable to read. The leaders read, and readers lead. If you want to lead more, you must read more. Read more positive things, read more about your field. Remember, we talked about competence yesterday. We talked about competence. And if we are not competent enough, then we are going to lose our integrity. We are going to lose credibility. We're going to lose trust. So we must keep reading. And what do we read? You don't just read. There was this magazine called True Love. One time I was coming from Chiromo to, I boarded the same bus which medical students boarded early in the morning. And I think I was going to KNH. And early in the morning, I saw another lady sitting next to me with some very obscene magazine. And I was wondering, early in the morning, this lady started feeding a lot of crap into her mind. You see, and this is somebody going to class. Let me tell you, we are a product of what we feed into our mind. How do we feed it into our mind? Through what we read. Because we read it, we concentrate on it, it gets into our hearts. Through what we see. We keep watching those horror movies. Let me tell you, life can't be lacking horror, because that is what is in our minds. We keep talking all the rubbish. That is what gets into our minds, because again, what we confess, we possess. I want to leave it at that. I hope I've been able to answer that. Any other related question or otherwise? If not, we will move on.
Thank you.